This GeekWire podcast is brought to you by BECU. Stay tuned to the break as Brian Westbrook interviews BECU's Stacy Black about minimizing the impact of uncertain times on your financial health. For more money hacks, check out geekwire.com/BECU.
The same thing that's happening in the Amazon warehouses is happening on the sports court too. So
yes,
it does raise these bigger issues about what's going to happen to the job market.
Well, I just have to say we can take some comfort in the fact that you're back this week, that you, John Cook, have not been replaced as GeekWire podcast co-host by Microsoft Copilot. So score one for humanity. Welcome to GeekWire. I'm GeekWire co-founder Todd Bishop.
And I'm GeekWire co-founder John Cook.
We are coming to you from Seattle, where we get to report each day on what's happening around us in business, technology, and innovation. What happens here matters everywhere, and every week on this show, we talk about some of the most interesting stories and trends in the news. Good to see you, John.
Great to see you.
All right, so I wanted to start this week's show, and trust me, I'm going somewhere with this that's relevant, but I wanted to ask you, did you have any favorite jobs growing up in your 20s or in your college years or even your high school years that you think back on or even kind of remember when things come up related to that job these days?
Well, you know, Todd, I'm directly connected to the work I do today with one of my first jobs, which you know so well, which was compiling obituary information every day by calling the funeral homes and asking who died and then transmitting that to the newspaper where it got published as a list of those who died that day. So I'm not too far off here in my journalistic roots. But that was one of my first jobs.
I remember we used to joke that you went from covering dead people to dead companies back in the dot-com bust.
That's right. That's right. How about you? Your first jobs?
Well, I had a number of first jobs, everything from mowing lawns to, working at Musco Olive in Orland, California, where I grew up, all of which convinced me that, yes, in fact, it was worth going to college, so I didn't have to do that for the rest of my life.
Wait a minute. What's Musco Olive? I've never heard of that.
Musco Olive. It's an olive processing plant in Orland, where I grew up. I worked there for a summer, stacking cans and cleaning the processing lines, and deciding that college really was for me. But the job that I loved, and the reason I bring this up, was the early morning shift at United Parcel Service, UPS, in the college town where I went to school in Chico, California. I was a preloader, and it was a great job if you were kind of a go-getter and you wanted to earn a little extra money because it was early in the morning before classes started. And the packages would come down that conveyor belt. And as a preloader, your responsibility was taking the packages off that belt, reading the label very quickly, knowing if it was in one of your 3 or 4 trucks, and then putting it on the appropriate shelf in the right order so that the driver, when he or she came in, would have them in the right order as they drove around, and they wouldn't have to fiddle around with it. And it was one of the toughest things I ever did because you had to memorize the chart to be fast enough to keep the packages from piling up, because it was kind of like a Lucille Ball thing, they just kept coming.
Gosh, what a great reference that our listeners are going to pick up on. Lucille Ball, Jiminy Christmas.
Well, I think most people have seen the chocolate coming down where she and at any rate. I was reminded this.
It sounds like something that AI or robotics could easily replace, Todd. Is this where you're going?
What a roundabout way to get to it. Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah. But in fact, this week, Amazon came out with a new technology for its Rivian delivery vans. And it was one of those moments where I just thought to myself, if only I had this or we had this in the 1990s when I was at UPS, it would have been a game changer because it completely takes away the need for somebody like a preloader to precisely get the packages and the envelopes in just the exact order that they need to be. So what this is it's an AI projection system, and it puts light onto the packages when a driver stops at a given location to deliver packages. There's a green circle if it's a package that the driver needs to deliver at that particular address, and a red X on every other package in the back of the van. And it's this really interesting integration of the navigation system with AI, vision, augmented reality. And the really interesting thing is that Amazon says in its tests, this is saving about a half an hour per route per day for drivers because they don't have to spend 4 to 5 minutes in between stops rearranging the packages in a bin or figuring out what comes next. They just know that the system, and it's kind of got a cool name, it is the Vapor system, the vision assisted package retrieval system. They know that this system will tell them which packages they need to grab. And there's other little details. I actually talked to one of the UX designers behind this that I can get into. But to me, this is such a cool example of technology really improving things, at least as presented by Amazon.
So it flashes a light on the package that the driver is to take to the doorstep of that customer. And then everything else has an X on it. So it's just very easily identifying which package they need to grab quickly and run up to your doorstep.
Right. And it's not just one package. If you have 4 packages that are supposed to be delivered to that particular address, the system can detect where you are based on the navigation system and the GPS and tell you, hey, these are the 4 packages that you're supposed to deliver to this address.
And I was trying to tell this from the photo that you had in your story, but it seems like the lighting system is on the top of the Rivian, and it's flashing down on packages. It was a little hard to tell exactly how that was working.
Yes, it's sort of built into the roof of the Rivian from what I could tell. And from that angle, it's able to shine these lights, these indicators, onto the packages that are on the shelves inside the delivery van. And it also comes with a bit of an audio cue too.
This is not the package you're looking for.
Well, there's
Wouldn't that be cool?
Yes, they described it more like a chime that lets you know, hey, Vapor has packages for you here, and it's identified them for you in the back. And this is...
Oh, as you approach an address?
I'm trying to remember exactly how they described it. What happens is you park, and then you look down at the screen in the Rivian, and it shows you, hey, it's found 3 packages for this address. And then there's also a chime. I'm not sure exactly when the chime happens. I didn't get to see this in person, unfortunately. But there's a chime that lets you know audibly as well that there's been kind of a hit that, okay, we've got packages for this address. Vapor is working. And it's going to let you know that there's something back there to grab.
Sounds amazing. Do you think there are other applications for this technology? I would think so. My head's spinning trying to think where else. Oh, Todd, by the way, a UPS truck just drove by the GeekWire HQ.
They must know.
But we should be clear. This is not in UPS vehicles.
Yes.
These are Amazon Rivian vehicles, not a UPS technology that we know of.
I've actually thought, we love to do these GeekWire experience stories. I don't know if anybody from UPS is listening out there, but it would be such an amazing story to go back and see how technology has transformed that specific job, the UPS preloader job, assuming it still exists.
I doubt it's even a person anymore.
Exactly. I will tell you, sorry for the rabbit hole here, but the job that I really loved wasn't the preload into the truck. It was the unload from the semi. That's where you got your workout in. I mean, I was 21. It was perfect. I walked out of that place. I'd basically been sweating for 3 hours, and it was just amazing. And you took pride in your technique and your form because those led directly to how efficient you were in unloading that truck in 45 minutes. That was the goal, 45 minutes. was, at least at the time for us.
Well, I know we're going to at
Yes.
least have one UPS worker listener, because you know who's an avid listener of our
Yes,
show
yes.
is my brother who works for UPS as a pilot. So maybe he can share some insights.
Yes, maybe he can connect us with somebody at UPS HQ who can hook me up with experiential. Although I got to say, the liability of somebody in their 50s going and trying to do that job at this point.
Yeah, you're going to pull your back out immediately.
Okay, so there is a bigger picture story here for Amazon, and that is that 30 minutes that they're saying that they're going to save their drivers. And by the way, these are not Amazon drivers. They're drivers delivering Amazon packages who work for delivery service partner companies that contract with Amazon.
All of them?
Yes.
100% of that workforce.
390 some odd thousand drivers around the world. The people in the blue uniforms, the Prime vans, those are DSP drivers. They do not get paid by Amazon. They get paid by the people who contract with Amazon to deliver the packages.
And I did know that. I just didn't know it was 100% of that workforce.
If there's some exceptions, I don't know about them. I'm pretty sure it's entirely this third-party workforce. And this is a whole other issue.
I know, but Todd, you've been really digging into this in a deep way.
Yeah.
And now we kind of know the roots of why you're so interested in this story. In fact, you're kind of having a logistics love fest here lately on all the stories. In fact, this is going to be logistics supply chain podcast, essentially. You know, you're so into it. I love it.
Well, it's fun.
It's a whole new world of technology that usually it's all the back end infrastructure that usually goes without anybody talking about it. So I love that you're diving into it and putting a light on it, putting a vapor light on it.
Well, before we stop talking about vapor here, the user experience designer, the leader that I spoke with, was really interesting because he explained that this is innovative in part because of its simplicity. One of the things that this has done is taken out one of the scans that the driver has to do with a mobile device. And if you think about user experience, the ability to directly project something onto the real world is kind of the ultimate, the ability to just have the world around you be the user experience, just augmented by technology without any glasses or tablets or smartphone screens that you have to look through. So that was kind of cool. But from a bigger picture Amazon corporate perspective, the thing I was getting to is that this drive for efficiency is part of a larger pattern. Amazon CEO Andy Jassy is very big on this notion of lowering the cost to serve, as they call it.
Isn't it just getting more efficient?
It is getting more efficient. And the whole notion is that they want to reduce their costs so they can reduce their prices. The other place where we saw this week was Amazon's new next generation, I believe it's the 12th generation robotics facility, fulfillment center in Shreveport, Louisiana, which is a place I really want to go. I double checked. They have not let reporters into this place yet. And they are saying that it's resulting in about a 25% efficiency in processing packages because they've got all of their advanced robotics in there. And they're basically making it so that every element of that facility has some kind of robotics associated with it that people are working with. And of course, the question I asked was, okay, so does that mean there are fewer employees there? And as you can imagine,
no answer.
They were very ready with an answer, a very practiced answer. They were They said it's about 2,500 people, which is comparable or the same as other fulfillment centers of similar size and scope. However, the roles are different. In many cases, these people are doing things that are more in conjunction with the robotics, or they're checking on systems. They're not doing as much of the heavy lifting themselves. Now, how accurate is that? Have we gone in and audited exactly how many employees are there? No, but that is what they're saying. And that is kind of Amazon's message on jobs and robotics.
It's funny you bring this up because it does get into the bigger issue of jobs and displacing jobs. And another big story in the news, this is totally unrelated, but I've been thinking about it this week because I know you're a big tennis fan. I'm a big tennis fan.
Yeah.
And the elimination of the line judges at Wimbledon after 147 years, I've been wondering, like, what and I'm sure there are stories out there, like, what are those people going to do? Are they still going to employ them? Are they going to have other roles within the Wimbledon grounds? But The Guardian had the best headline on this. It was, "You cannot be serious. Wimbledon abolishes line judges after 147 years." You know, all the tennis fans out there are gonna love that.
A nice Johnny Mac reference.
Yeah, the same thing that's happening in the Amazon warehouses is happening on the sports court too. So
yes,
it does raise these bigger issues about what's going to happen to the job market.
Well, I just have to say we can take some comfort in the fact that you're back this week, that you, John Cook, have not been replaced as GeekWire podcast co-host by Microsoft Copilot. So score one for humanity.
Although we should have people rate and review whether they like John Cook or Copilot better.
Here's my ultimate measure, John. I have laughed far more in this week's opening segment than I did in last week's opening segment. And nor have I scolded you for your lack of journalistic integrity. So,
okay. Well, there's still plenty of time in this show.
All right. Speaking of, coming up next, no, I'm kidding. Coming up next, hey, I want to talk about a former Amazon executive and the surprising thing that he did this week. That's coming up. You're listening to GeekWire, and we will be right back. This GeekWire podcast is brought to you by BECU. Stay tuned as Brian Westbrook interviews BECU's Stacy Black for today's Money Hack about minimizing the impact of uncertain times on your financial health. And for more money hacks, check out geekwire.com/BECU.
How do uncertain times affect your financial health? I'm Brian Westbrook, host of Money Hacks presented by BECU, joined by Stacy Black, lead financial educator for BECU. The world around us is changing, Stacy. What do we do?
Yeah, we need to stay focused on what we can control. It's really volatile right now and there's not a lot we can control. So focus in on what you have control over and look for resources. BECU has great resources for our members, so check with your financial institution and see how they can help. And remember to stay focused on your financial goals. That's why we're going through this work.
We'll have more on this topic, including the latest on student loan forgiveness and what we should do when this topic keeps changing in the world around us. Thank you, Stacy. For more on this topic, visit Money Hacks at geekwire.com/BECU.
Listen to the full interview and find more episodes of Money Hacks at geekwire.com/BECU. And find more information at becu.org. Welcome back. It's Todd Bishop and John Cook. John, Dave Clark. No, not the musician, not the jazz musician. It's funny. Every time I Google him.
Yeah, you have some really great references this week. Lucille Ball and Dave Clark, the jazz musician. Okay. I'm going to do the Wikipedia search on that because I think that's going outside of my realm. Born 1939.
Okay. What's his middle name?
He's 2 years younger than my dad. Okay.
Well, the Dave Clark I'm talking about was previously the head of Amazon's logistics business, built out Amazon's whole network of delivery, including the DSP program, Amazon Prime cargo planes. And he was Amazon's consumer CEO briefly, and then he left. Dave Clark did. David H. Clark, by the way. And I know his middle initial because I was searching through SEC filings and Delaware corporations filings trying to figure out the business partners he was working with. But anyway, the reason this is interesting is because he came back to Seattle and he announced this week that he's launching a new supply chain technology startup called Augur, Auger. And he had been in Texas during the last part of his tenure at Amazon and when he was for about a year the CEO of Flexport, the logistics technology company, before he left there in kind of a blaze of glory. It didn't work out in terms of his relationship with the founder there, Ryan Peterson, but he's back. And the interesting thing to me was not only did he raise $100 million for this thing out of the gate, but he decided that he was going to build this thing in Seattle. He's moved back to Bellevue, Washington because of the talent, and they're going to be working in person. So this is a fascinating glimpse into the mindset of somebody who is kind of doing it old school. They're going to be having an office, working together, and he really talked about the importance of that.
Different strokes for different folks. I think in a startup company where you're day one and you have no history and you have no culture and you have no product yet that's built, having the team together in a room to really riff and work together and make really fast changes and build together is really important. And we'll evaluate that over time as we scale. But for this, for these first few years, being all together and being able to really riff on things together is important.
I read it and I was like, this sounds like Amazon. I mean, even the words he was using, like he had a quote where he was like, it's day one. And I'm like, okay, yeah. And it's like doing all this technology around supply chain and logistics. Well, that's what he did at Amazon. So there's a lot of Amazon DNA. And I'm sure one of the reasons why he's setting up his operations here with his new $100 million in funding is in part because some of those folks he used to work with at Amazon, he will be trying to attract to his new company.
That hub of talent that you're referencing is obviously due in part to Amazon. Do you expect to be hiring some of your former colleagues from Amazon?
I think it's going to be a mix of people. I think you're going to see, I've got a pretty big network of people over in and around this area in the technology space at a variety of different companies. But certainly the talent from Amazon supply chain and technology is a great group that, I wouldn't be surprised to see some of those folks end up on the team.
Which is very interesting. We've said in the past on this show, we haven't seen enough talent coming out of Amazon into the startup and entrepreneurial community. I think this is a counterexample to that. And I think it's going to be really interesting to watch how he does and if he can make some ground in this arena.
Did you think about going back to Amazon to do this?
No, because I mean, I had a great 23 years at Amazon, but it was 23 years at Amazon. Amazon and I are both in different phases of life now.
Yes.
and I really, like I said, I'm kind of Benjamin Buttoning it back. Like I want to go back to, I really want to work with a team of people that I love working with, that share the same mission as me, that are masochistic about this incredible global problem and are committed to doing whatever it takes to solve it. And we can build the culture that we want over the long term, taking the best of what we've all experienced. And I'm super excited about it. I think it's just going to be a really fun journey. And I think we're going to help a lot of companies in the process.
I don't think I've met Dave Clark before. I think you have on a few occasions. He seems, just from the story and reading some of his quotes, he seems like a charismatic guy. Like, I mean, I don't know how you would describe him, but like some of his quotes, I really like. He's like, I really want to work with a team of people that I love working with, that share the same mission as me, that are masochistic about this incredible global problem and are committed to doing whatever it takes to solve it. I mean, language you don't always see from Amazon folks. So I don't know. Describe what he's like personally.
Yeah, he's very straightforward, I would say. And his nickname at Amazon, do you know what his nickname at Amazon was, John?
Oh, Dave Clark 5 times 10.
No, his nickname was the Sniper.
Oh, why?
Because he, earlier in his career, was an executive who would kind of lurk in the shadows at the fulfillment centers. And I don't know if he did this with managers or employees, but he would see who was really working and who was phoning it in. And if you were phoning it in, you were probably gone the next day. So
wow. I mean, I kind of love that. But it's a little scary, but
yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And by the way, that came, at least I read it first, in a great profile that was done by Spencer Soper of Bloomberg News a while back.
Great reporter, yeah. Yeah, I'm just looking at his background. Yeah, I mean, he was at Amazon for almost 25 years.
Yes.
And then the brief stint at Flexport. But He has Southern roots. It looks like Auburn University and went to University of Tennessee where he got his MBA. So even more reason why maybe Nashville. But we're glad that he's building his company in Seattle, and we have an interesting ex-Amazon executive to track that has a lot of funding to see how they do with their startup.
It was kind of neat to talk to him because you could tell it was exciting and freeing for him to suddenly be doing his own thing.
That came across in the story. I liked the energy that came through the piece. I think you could really tell that this was new for him. He was excited about it. Obviously, a lot of experience in building big systems for existing companies, and to see that energy moving towards a startup, we need to see more of that in the Seattle area.
Well, cool. I will link to that story from the show notes. One last AI segment coming up. I got a chance to talk with Dr. Thomas Lynch, the president of the Fred Hutchinson Cancer Center, about a new partnership that they just announced last week. I talked with him in person, and I wanted to share a little highlight from that coming up after the break. Does Compute, the new podcast from Carnegie Mellon's School of Computer Science and GeekWire Studios, explores how computer science is building useful stuff that works. Innovations shaping healthcare, AI, climate solutions, and more. Featuring top experts, Does Compute reveals real-world impacts, no coding required. Download the podcast or watch the Season 1 videos at geekwire.com/doescompute. Welcome back. It's Todd Bishop with John Cook. I wanted to play a quick clip of an interview that I had with Thomas Lynch, Dr. Thomas Lynch, the president of Fred Hutch, the Fred Hutch Cancer Center here in Seattle. Last week, they announced a new Cancer AI Alliance. This is bringing together the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute, Fred Hutch, the Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, the Sidney Kimmel Comprehensive Cancer Center, and the Whiting School of Engineering at Johns Hopkins, along with AWS, Deloitte, Microsoft, and NVIDIA. Really kind of a powerful lineup of institutions and companies to take on cancer. John, you've covered this, I know, in the past through some of the comments of Dr. Lynch's predecessor at Fred Hutch. But to me, this is really fascinating, the notion that AI could be used to take on this just horrible disease in a new way that hasn't been done before.
Yeah, I think we talk a lot about the negative implications of AI. Oftentimes, when people cite the ways that AI can actually benefit society, it often turns to healthcare and potentially the cure for cancer. And so I think it's fantastic that this group of organizations are putting a lot of resources behind this. And between the computing power and AI, maybe there is a path there.
So I talked with Dr. Lynch on the sidelines at the Madrona IA Summit in Seattle on October 2nd, shortly after he announced this partnership on stage. Here's some highlights from that conversation.
We met actually the first time I came here. It was like the first thing I did when I got to Seattle. Was came and meet with you. Met with you at your office.
Our offices.
We did a podcast. Yeah.
So in the history of cancer research and collaboration, how would you characterize this? How does this fit into the...
Well, what was interesting about this whole process was how we were able to bring together these four incredible cancer centers at these four major tech companies. All of us tend to be competitors with each other in most of what we do, but for this project, people were able to sort of bury that competitive spirit and bring out a collaborative spirit, and I just could not be more excited about what this could offer. Remember, we don't have the tools in academic medicine to do AI. We don't have the GPU chips. We don't have the compute to be able to do that. This enables us to have access to the very best tools in AI to be able to use the incredible rich data that exists in all of our centers. And we hope this is just the start. We hope this is not just 4 centers. We hope that we bring in many more of the nation's top cancer centers in this process. So looking forward to it.
And then just lastly, when you think about the promise of AI, where does your mind go?
So AI is going to have impact obviously in all parts of our lives. But it'll help us take care of patients better, faster. But from a research standpoint, it's going to uncover answers to questions that have perplexed oncologists forever. It's going to tell us why certain cancers grow in certain places and why certain tumors respond wonderfully to treatments and why others we haven't been able to touch at all. So I'm incredibly optimistic about what this can offer.
Will AI cure cancer?
AI is going to be part of curing cancer. It's going to be part of the answer. It's going to enable the cure of cancer is what I would say.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you
very much.
All right, that was Dr. Thomas Lynch of the Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Center speaking with me on the sidelines of the Madrona IA Summit in Seattle on October 2nd after the announcement of the new Cancer AI Alliance. And I'll link from the show notes to our coverage and more information about that new partnership that Fred Hutch has struck with these other research organizations and these big tech companies. All right, that's it for GeekWire this week. Thanks for listening, everybody. Until next time, I'm Todd Bishop.
And I'm John Cook.
We'll be back next week with a new episode of the GeekWire podcast.
World Vision, a global Christian organization, invites you to subscribe to World Change. Sounds impossible, right? Not anymore. With a simple monthly gift, you can make a big impact, helping equip vulnerable families around the world with access to resources like clean water, food, education, and more. And you'll receive regular updates showing the life-changing difference you are making. Learn more by visiting worldvision.org/worldchange. Click, give, subscribe to World Change.